Welcome to New Game Plus. This is a retro gaming podcast where three guys spend 7 days playing one old game and then we talk about it. My name is Dustin.
My name is Kenny.
Nolan.
And this is Elements. What is Elements?
Elements
is our monthly bonus episode brought to you by our propitious patrons.
You can't say that about people.
You always say that. It's a bad word. You can find out
rude.
more information at patreon.com/NGP podcast, where you can support the show for as little as $1 a month and get some perks to go along with that.
For those of you who don't know how Elements works, this is our chance to dive in a little deeper to some content than sometimes we're normally able to. Our normal weekly episodes, we are looking at everything about a game, whole picture. More of a review than a deep dive. And Elements is our chance to go deep on a specific topic. We've kind of informally listed those topics that we're going to do as gameplay, characters, story, music, and I always forget one every time we go. What am I missing?
The same one you missed earlier?
No, I said characters.
Oh, you said
already.
characters.
Yeah.
Story,
I
graphics?
took notes. Graphics. Those aren't the only things that define a game, but they're a great sort of summary way of talking about a specific element that makes up a game.
Smell. We don't do smell.
We don't do
We
smell.
don't do the smell of a game.
And one thing that also makes this particular kind of episode unique is that we're not just limited to retro video games.
Right. We take that limitation off of ourselves, and it's nice to kind of change context just a little bit.
Yeah.
Especially when new games come out that we really are interested
Speaking of, we are talking today about an action-adventure game. It is a sequel, direct sequel, and it was released back in...
2017?
I think it might have been 2023.
Oh, the new one?
Was that long ago?
This game that we're talking about was released in 2023.
That's a long time ago.
It is currently sitting at a whopping 95 on Metacritic. That's the score.
That's pretty
That's
high.
high.
Nigh perfect.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it is part of a series that began in 1986, boys. That's
It's a long
ancient.
time. That's ancient.
You, in this game, take the role of a protagonist named Link on his quest to once again save Hyrule and to rescue Zelda. We could have talked about the story. Story is fairly rich, particularly for a Zelda title here. Gave it away a little bit by saying Zelda title.
Oh, no.
We could have talked about
What people didn't already know.
We could have talked about the characters, maybe, but characters isn't what this game is all about, although these more than its predecessors.
Yeah.
there's
Link's
some
still
good
flat
ones.
as ever, but the other one.
Link's in this game as well, and I said that too. Link's still fat?
Flat.
Because he's pretty
Put
skinny.
on a little bit.
He's getting chubby. We could have talked about the music, absolutely.
Yes.
Easily.
Yes.
And I think there was something to be said about the graphics, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More of the same, but yeah.
But instead of those four elements, we decided to talk about the gameplay of The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom.
Okay, given that this is a sequel, I think it's important to start with us talking about how the game is similar, because in Zelda's history, we've gotten a completely different game like after the last one. Majora's Mask was like similar to OOT, but it's still very different. Tears is like more Breath of the Wild in so many ways.
And Breath of the Wild was a revolution to the series. Totally different.
Breath
right?
of the Wild changed things in a very significant way.
Yeah.
And so I think what they did was, hey, this worked really well. They obviously sold a ton of copies, so it's monetarily related. But I do think they believe in some of the core gameplay mechanics that they brought back because they work, and they want to reuse things that work. So let's talk about a few. One glaring one is that we have open world Hyrule again.
Yeah.
So you've got familiar landmarks, some of which, Dustin, I think you even said that you saw, you vaguely recognized from the first game, and you had changed it from the first game?
It was so fun because I came across there's quark puzzles all over, and there's one weird looking tree you don't normally see that was chopped down and it was 3-pronged and nothing was on it, but I noticed down at the bottom of the hill afterwards a big boulder was sitting in a hole, and I remembered that in Breath of the Wild it was a quark puzzle. You take that, you roll it down the hill and land it in the hole, and you get a quark seed. And in this one, it's still like that. So it's the same world but evolved, right?
Yeah, same place, but a time has happened.
No.
You know, there's an evolution in the space. And in some interesting ways, because of some story beats, you know, about the world and kind of what's happening
The upheaval.
generally. Yeah, upheaval, and, you know, you've got the things that have fallen from the sky, like having an impact on the landscape as well. But it's very recognizable as the same place. Your overworld map is going to generally be the same world.
Yeah. And you've got some like major villages in the game, but it's the same places, right? So it's northeast, northwest, southeast,
Hateno's where
southwest.
Hateno goes.
Central is that. Even the stables, like, so very familiar.
Yeah, and that's perfect because, again, you're going for the exact same audience you had the first time.
Yeah.
Something else that's returning. Shield, weapon, bow, free inventory. So you have all three of those item types and durability, which I know that you hate.
You hate it?
No,
I'm talking about you.
Oh, I thought you said y'all. Oh yeah. And I still do.
I know.
I despise that. Not so much to do what some traders do and add mods to take away durability. If the game created it, then I'm going to work within the confines that the game gives me.
Wait a minute.
I'm exactly 100%.
Okay.
I'm going to work within the confines the game gives me.
Item duplication is not returning from Breath of the Wild. We'll just say that.
There might have been. I just wasn't into it.
I don't think there was.
This game, for as polished as it is, and it is, had so many under the hood things that you could break and do for your favor.
It's not a surprise considering the complexity of systems,
and nothing in a way that is like offensive in the sense of they should have known that.
No, it's like it's like noticeably good for a release date to the fact where it's like playable, fun. They don't need to patch it. So you have that. Something else that's pretty major: paraglider for navigating the open world. Obviously, you have to have that bag staple. It's so good. It's really good.
Give it to you right away, and it's nice. Sure. You're kind of like, am I going to have to deal with not having this?
Yeah.
And then old familiar comes back, and it's just everything is right.
But navigation in the air, you have paraglider. Navigation on land, you have horses. We've got other stuff, but that's not returning.
No. Yes. But you do have the shrines. Major part of the game, almost still there. Love them. Glad that they're back. I'm enjoying them. Maybe a little more than last time.
Not a little more. I feel like that was one of your downsides of Breath of the Wild. You did not love the shrines.
Every time we talked about that game, he was like,
There's a lot of repetition, and they do that here too. There's a lot of the same types of like free chest kind of shrines, but they've gotten very creative with some of the new abilities that we'll talk about that really do something for me. And there are keys in some of the larger ones, and I love keys
it for you
because it reminds me of traditional Zelda dungeons.
So it feels more like a dungeon.
It feels
in those
at home.
cases. Yeah,
feels at home, but they've definitely given us more to play with in this upheaval Hyrule.
Some of our top tier patrons had an opportunity to know what game we are going to be talking about in advance and send in some thoughts and commentary on the different elements we're going to be talking about. In this, Corey said, everything that I hated about Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom fixed for me in every way. Whoa. I find that all the new things they added, all the new abilities they added are so much more fun to experience and use.
Everything was fixed. See, I don't think I can make that kind of claim.
Everything is bold.
But I will say...
Yeah.
Kenny will never make an everything claim.
No, I know. It's too extreme. It's too committal. But I would say...
I will never.
Whoa! I stand corrected. I do think... Who said that?
Corey.
Corey, I do think that this game will be my favorite of the two. And I haven't beaten it. I should say that.
That's interesting. You're saying that right now. Do you feel it will be your favorite of the two?
Yes.
Yeah, it's just better.
Okay. Well, and ask me.
Is it going to be your favorite of the two?
I don't know.
Sure.
I love Breath of the Wild.
I know you do. It's your favorite Zelda. Whoa. It is.
It became my favorite Zelda.
Yeah.
And Tears of the Kingdom is great, does improve in a lot of ways, but it's improving but so much of it is copy paste, not in a negative sense necessarily, although maybe to some, but it is Breath of the Wild 2, right?
Sure.
It's Breath of the Wild 2
Yes.
because what they did the first time, they did so well.
Yeah, they nailed it. Good job.
There are some ways that they stray away from the original game, though, because, and this is where our conversation will get interesting, the main sort of mechanics of gameplay have changed drastically.
Right, that's strange.
Which is weird because it is sort of the same game,
Wow.
But how you
but the tools that enable that process are wildly different.
Wildly.
There's some overlap, and we'll talk about that, but all of your core Breath of the Wild skills, magnesis, bombs,
Cryonis.
cryonisis,
Stasis.
Cryonisis?
I think it's
is this a
Cryonis.
Hades god?
It's I don't know what
You
it's
threw
called.
a couple vowels in there.
Yeah,
Isis?
Wait.
chrono.
It's fine. We're good.
Glopulus. I'll put as many syllables as in words as I want. Those are gone. You don't have them anymore.
Yeah.
You also don't have some of your upgrades that you get from well-loved upgrades. Your shield, your heals, your fly up into the air that you get as you clear the temples. Like they have reworked all of those systems. And yet it still feels like the same game because you got a replacement set of skills, and we're going to talk about many of those, that work similarly. So let's start with the most, not the most important, but the most noticeable. Let's talk about Ultrahand. Ultrahand at first glance feels almost like a direct magnesis replacement.
Yes.
You can, the menu that brings up looks sort of like that, where the world kind of glows and you can see which items you can interact with, and you can use this item to pick things up and move them around.
Great.
However, moving things around only goes so far. It's wildly helpful on its own, and sometimes that's all you're using it for. But you're also using it for wildly more complex things than that, because beyond moving things, you can also find ways to combine different items and sort of engineer or build a sort of custom item to your liking.
Yeah, and I called it Minecraft when I started playing the game. I called it Legos when I started playing the game.
Both still true.
It's both
after
true.
playing it, like it's.
But I meant it in a slightly negative sense at first, and I mean it less in a negative sense now.
It's grown on you. It's a little overwhelming at first.
it must grow on you.
It has to grow on you,
Yeah.
Or you'll bounce off this game. It's very core to the game.
and I've acknowledged it to y'all, and those that know me in the community will know. I don't like having to do things on my own. I play a lot of games with manuals. I like there to be a clear-cut way. This is not a game about clear-cut ways.
Not at all. Because you could solve a problem in a plethora of different ways. You're just given some components to work with, and then you've got to engineer a solution to the problem. And there may not be just one.
Part of me dislikes the scope of that ability.
Yeah.
It's a little overwhelming, especially at first.
Because in Breath of the Wild, the ones you named, they each had a name and they each had a function, and I think Cryonos was like ice and water, and Magnesis was moving things. I like that those categories exist in that game. This one, it's so open-ended. Like fuse anything, fuse literally anything. What?
Fuse, yes,
Yeah,
but
you
also
gotta be
Ultra Hand. Those are
Careful
different,
with
you know.
your
Sure.
And
vernacular.
At first, they seem comparable. In my mind, they did.
Right.
But then when I realized Ultra Hand is for the environment and Fuse is for your weapon
Yes.
and
Yeah.
shield,
And items.
separates
Let's
it.
talk about some more of the
Absolutely.
mechanics of Ultrahand, though, because you're not just picking things up.
Okay.
You have to manipulate them. So you can pick something up, you can rotate it, you can turn it, and this allows you to get any item you want into any 3D orientation you need, which then the game has sort of built-in logic about how a game can connect to something else. And so it literally means that whatever you want to build, you can build in a way that you want to build it, within reason.
Right, so not literally anything, but metaphorically anything.
I mean, literally anything that you have pieces for, you can
That can be
combine
connected
into
to
pieces.
something
I
else.
mean,
Yeah,
I've seen some
that-
pretty obscene
Right,
things.
you see the memes.
Absolutely. And well, here's where we've got to get a little bit of nuance, and we don't want to go too deep, but
Right.
you're not just provided with like stuff in the world. You're not just sticking a tree to a rock and going like, cool, that was art. You do have some like bare bones construction materials, wood and beams and all of those things. But there's also an entire library of these sort of functional active components that you're also using in this building.
There's rockets,
So
there's springs.
Yeah, you're getting motion types of things, you're getting movement, you're getting fans, you're getting engineering-ish sorts of stuff. And those have all been predefined and have a predefined set of actions that they can provide to the physics of the world, which when combined together can, in really creative ways, let you just explore and build and make all sorts of stuff that solves all sorts of problems. And it's hard to talk even more specifically because it's so much.
I've got two slightly opposing views from some of our top tier
I
patrons.
wanna hear this, yeah.
Garlisle
Yeah, I'm
said,
curious.
Ultrahand is a mechanic that is so good, I fully expect countless games to imitate it in the coming years, and
So true.
absolutely fail to make a successful refined physics engine for it.
For
So
sure.
true.
Everything
There
is
will
going
be
to be.
some very bad knockoffs of this in the future.
Yeah.
Nintendo is brilliant because they knew Minecraft was successful, and so let's just try to bring that into Breath of the Wild. I know it's not identical,
It's
but
not.
and I've never played Minecraft,
I
and you
get-
haven't either.
Yeah, I actually don't see
But
the
I'm
comparison.
familiar enough to get why you would say that.
But I played it a
But
lot
I
more.
don't. Yeah,
The
I
reason
don't think
why-
it's 1-to-1.
The reason why is because Minecraft, in my mind, is a sandbox, right? Where you can
It
go
is.
in and you can kind of do what you want to do with what the resources you have available to you.
Yeah, I just think the scope, again, I come back
Sure.
to that, of this thing is like, yeah, I think it's going to spread to other games and it could be really bad.
And Clint, the opposing thing here about Ultrahand, there are near limitless number of options with it, and I think it serves as a great purpose to allow creativity while simultaneously making puzzles feel like I solved it, yay, less like I solved it,
Yeah,
yay,
yeah.
and more like I'm almost certain that wasn't the intended solution, but I'm done with that, I guess, which I find a bit disappointing in retrospect.
That can work for some people, though.
That's
I think some people will
Me.
feel sure, like Dustin could like solve it in the most ridiculous way and be like nice, whereas like Clint wants the traditional. There's one way to solve this puzzle in Zelda.
And I typically lean that way,
Yeah.
but it feels to me, and I think to a lot of people, rewarding when they do something ludicrous and they do think. I think it's almost what he said. I'm almost certain that wasn't the intended solution. That was, yay! I think
Right.
combining those
But
things
that
are a
was
lot of people.
sick.
But that
Yeah.
was sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think the fun factor is through the roof with
Yeah.
it, with the ability. Yeah, it's just a good addition overall, I think.
The game is cool because it doesn't stop you from combining elements
Yeah.
with Ultrahand to build things. It also lets you combine elements of items you've collected and your own equipment.
Fuse.
So, yeah, this feels a lot like Ultrahand, and I'm going to talk about him in similar ways because we're still combining stuff and making something else. But this is a distinct mechanic in the game. It's called Fuse. And the idea is you can take, and there's lore and story reasons for all of this. Check some of that out. But you can take a broken sword, you can take a base weapon or a shield that is not as strong as it has been in past games, and supplement it, augment it, change the way it works in some cases, extend its abilities or functionality, all sorts of different things by fusing those two items together.
And what are some of the things that you fuse?
Yeah.
That's the fun thing to talk about.
That can be anything from you have a nice long stick, but you want it to
longer
be even
stick?
longer so that you can hit enemies that are a long
stick
way
stick.
away.
Here's-
and so you can make a stick.
Here's mine.
yes,
It's not
Nolan.
interesting. Most people would put a bomb on the end of an arrow. Bomb arrow is a returning thing
Okay.
in Zelda.
Sure.
I don't know why I thought to attach it to a melee weapon, I was going to swing at something,
my
and
goodness.
I attached a bomb flower to a stick and didn't throw it at an enemy. I swung
Yeah.
it and blew myself up.
and blew yourself up.
Because that's
course.
how the world.
I thought you were going to share about your box shield, which was the highlight of your first play.
On the
with
other
it.
side, we have good scratch, which is box shield.
Box-
You put a wooden box on a wooden shield, done.
But hey, you can also fuse a minecart, a large minecart, the one you're thinking of,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
your shield, and then you can shield surf like you
can.
did in the past. And
Great.
instead of surfing on your shield, you're riding on the wheels of the minecart that's attached to your shield.
Or say there's a ledge that's too high up for you to jump to,
Yeah.
but it's not a climbable wall. Maybe you have a spring you picked up
Right.
somewhere else in the game. Attach it to your
I didn't
shield.
think of that.
Shield surf jump It's going to bounce. It's going to shoot you way up in the air. Boom, access to an area you hadn't gotten
Not only
to.
that, Nolan, you can use it as a defense, and when
Spring
enemies
them
run up
away.
to you, it springs them away. It pushes them. They fly away.
That's what I'm doing when I get
All
home.
sorts of things like that. And those aren't the only ones. We're saying
Sure.
them as just examples. And yes, this allowed them to take fire arrows out of the game, electric arrows out of the game. Any specific use case items are gone.
right.
Because
Yeah, you
all
can
you
make
need
them.
to
You can make
do
them, yeah.
is take your arrow and
Yeah.
then fuse it with the thing that then gives you utility. So it's simpler, and yet at the same time, it's wildly more complex in terms of what you're allowed to do. And there's lots to discover there.
Those are comparable but different. Those are two of the abilities that you get in your ability wheel, and you get those early on in the game. A third ability that you get is recall. That's what I want to talk about, recall, which is literally reversing time. It's the new time mechanic. There was a time mechanic in the last one.
Stasis.
Yeah.
Stasis, and that's freezing time, kind of?
It's
Right.
yes,
you
it's
could
freezing.
freeze and then manipulate something while you were in that
Yeah,
frozen
it would hold
state.
inertia.
Yeah, and then unfreeze, and whatever you did would happen.
And this is simply reversing time. So there are certain things that you can interact with when you turn it on. You can see the highlighted, the different items. Sometimes it's a cog wheel that is moving one direction, and you can choose that, and everything else will stay frozen, I believe, and it will reverse in time. So then you can maybe ride the cog wheel up if you need to. But also, what's fun is that you can use it in action. So there's a lot of enemies that throw things at you, rocks.
Dude, yeah.
Boomerangs, they might shoot an arrow at you if you can click on it. You've got the octo rocks that come up and spit something at you, and when you click that, it freezes time, so you can then move your cursor over and click on those to send it right back at the enemy and do significant damage. It is the ability that I thought that I would use the least, and it might still be the least, but I have found some really fun uses for it.
It really clicked for me, that ability, when I remembered way into the game that I should be using it in combat.
Yeah.
Because it is such a like puzzle oriented thing
Right.
at face value, but when you're like, they're throwing stuff at me, literally send it back. Like just
Literally send it back.
like that is so useful in combat and makes combat interesting and fun to me. I really like that ability.
It's fun as its own mechanic. I can't imagine the work trying to program the
Oh my
logic
gosh.
for something like this.
It's ridiculous.
Where you literally have to track the physical state space of every item that can be interacted with and track that in a way that you could then
That is crazy.
Yeah, 'cause it
also
shows you the
pl-
path of
yeah,
where
you
it's
can
gonna
also
go.
literally play in reverse, but then interact with that thing while it's in reverse. So some platform is falling down and you have no way to then get up. You just freeze time, jump on that platform, reverse it, and it's going to go whoop right back where it started. Suddenly you got a free elevator.
Yeah.
It's tons of utility, and it's definitely one that when you first see it, you're kind of like, this is sort of dumb, and then it has a million uses.
Speaking of elevators, I don't know if y'all would have discovered it yet. You have. There are big chunks of sky that are falling down around you when you're traversing throughout Hyrule. Some of those you can use the reverse on and ride it as a free elevator up into the sky, Kenny.
You know the ones that you can attach to weapons
That's
that they're interactable.
crazy.
Those are the ones that
You
can
get
send
on them,
back.
reverse
Yeah.
it. That's in part why they're falling down, story reasons, but also so that you can have a free elevator up to the sky.
Have you ever been hit by one of those, by the way? Yes. I had like an epic fight going on and I got nailed.
They literally were just like, the sky is
Irrespective.
falling.
Yeah.
Let's just make
Yeah.
it part of our game.
Absolutely. But then it's also used to solve puzzles, and
Yeah.
that's always fun because you can it's moving things around and then sending them back at a certain direction. I've often done an action with an item so that I could then position myself in a different place where I don't have to interact with it, and reverse it so that it goes back into blocking
Sure.
a flame, or goes back into being on top of a button, or whatever the case might be. So it is good for puzzle solving. But listen, if you are playing this game and just using it for when the puzzle asks for it, get more creative, because it's so much fun to use it in battles and for traversal out in the world. Recall is a fun ability, still probably least used for me. What about for
I
you?
think it's underrated, yeah.
Probably, but it's great, and it's very satisfying when you do use it.
That's
Yeah.
recall.
Nice. The next ability is Ascend that I wanted to talk to you guys about because
OP.
Okay, yeah.
It's fun because you hated the concept of it at first because you said it was cheating.
I have in my notes.
I still feel like I'm cheating every time I see it
Of course.
happen.
I have in my notes. I did not like this ability at first. It felt off. OP.
Yeah.
Would this ruin exploration? The
Right.
answers are yes, yes, and no. I'll tell you
Right.
why. Well, exploration in this game is the same as Breath of the Wild in most cases, except you have some other big components that we'll get into. The things falling from the sky, for instance. But this ability, for those that don't know, allows Link to go through surfaces above him, ascend through the things to the top, to pop out the top.
Right.
So if you're like in a cave, and legend has it, or rumor has it, legend goes, the developers were using this ability as a hack to quickly navigate Hyrule, to get out of the dungeons. Those
Out of caves.
Out of caves. Those are the new things in this game. And after using it for a while, someone was like, the player's going to want to do this too.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
give it to him. And
So
it
cool.
really is a dev tool that they gave to the players to use. And it feels...
But then they designed the game around
designed
it
it-
intelligently after that choice.
I think that's key, and that's why it's not broken.
Yeah.
Because and people will figure out a way to break it, but it's not generally broken because they've wisely created high ceilings in caves they don't want you to ascend through, or I don't know the coding or whatever, but made it to where you can't. When you click the ascend button, Link looks up, and if there's, you won't see anything if there's not a ceiling close by, but if it's within close enough, and there's a good reach there, but it will be red. The target will where you can't ascend. But if you can find that sweet spot where it's blue, then you can shoot up through the roof. If it doesn't have to do much loading, it's cool because you kind of can it tracks up and sees them pop up. Sometimes if it's a longer thing or it has to figure it out, you go through this like green world
Mystical,
where
that's
you're
weird.
swimming up vertically. But this is probably, I would say Ultrahand is most people's favorite new ability. Ascend might be mine because it just gives you a verticality that is a lot of fun here.
This is
love
my
it.
favorite.
Wow, okay.
Like,
It went from least
By
favorite
far.
to favorite.
Because of what I said about Ultrahand earlier, I'm still not comfortable with the scope of fusing and just like how
This
open-ended.
limitless, right.
Ascend, on the other hand, is pretty large in
But
scope.
it's
It allows-
one thing you're doing.
It's one, yeah, exactly. It's one action that they give you, and it's really good where it's good, and that's why it's fun. In the shrines where I've had to use it, dude, I enjoy it so much.
Yeah.
Like, and it's in combination with recall too. You can do some crazy stuff, like some really magic stuff.
You can give yourself higher platforms. You do it with Ultrahand, and then you recall it, then you can walk under it and ascend through the platform that's hanging in the air
Do you
right
want to
then.
know something I saw? It was one of those like Twitter
yeah,
pros fighting a Lionel. Held a rock in the, above them, and when you like drop a rock, it falls. But like they quickly
Recall?
Yeah, they dropped it and
Oh.
immediately ascended through the top of it. Was in midair. Oh no, they did recall it really quickly. Ascended through the top of the rock, stood on the rock, did a backflip off of it, and shot the Lionel just to flex on it.
Just
It
to
looks
flex.
so
It's amazing.
cool.
That's ridiculous.
But that ascend gives you so much freedom to navigate, to move around in the world. Harold, one of our top tier patrons, said the keyword I would use to describe the gameplay from a spectator's point of view is freedom. You have the freedom, it seems, to find your own solutions to the challenges the game presents. There are multiple solutions to every problem, and the game provides multiple paths to come up with a successful conclusion of your journey.
Yeah.
And I think that's key, not with Ascend, with Ultrahand, with Recall, with all of these abilities that we're talking about. I think the developers had some ideas. You could solve this multiple ways, but you can't come up with all the ideas that people are going to come up with.
Sure.
For
No
a
way.
lot of solutions, we're just building long bridges. I don't know if that's you, but Nolan was building the longest bridge in the world to solve every problem for a while.
I was.
Well, yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Oh, have y'all seen that you can build a long bridge, and if you do it right, you can also make it vertical, drop
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
and recall it, and you can have a free ride to the sky again
Yeah.
because you can ascend up 20 logs that you attached.
It's
so
great.
crazy.
It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
But Ascend is great. Love it.
Nolan, you had talked about some of the things that are the same and different, and just sort of the evolution of this game from Breath of the Wild. One of the things that they reworked but kept the philosophy behind that I really like the new incarnation of is the way they do the Skyview Towers. So they're called Skyview here, but just the towers.
Map reveal.
The map reveal component of this game. It was always a little gimmicky in Breath of the Wild. The climb all the way up felt slow and difficult and samey and sometimes a little punishing, and just like not super friendly. But once you got to the top of the tower, it gave you a reason to see the whole area around you, and so it made sense that this was how you're mapping things. Like, how are you going to improve that?
Sure.
Wildly. That's how. They completely rethought the system, but achieved all the same things with none of the negatives. So new towers, I'm gonna say it. I think they did a great job with it. Instead of you reaching the top of the tower, what you actually are doing is getting attached. You'd like literally tether in so that the information that you're about to find out can be like downloaded into your Palm Pilot.
PurePad.
Yeah.
Palm Pilot.
It's a Palm Pilot. And then a giant balloon bounces you way up into the sky. You just get launched. It's a rocket launcher where you are the rocket. And from that vantage, Link is able to scan the surrounding area and to, because of that, map out the sky that he sees, the land and all the landmarks around it, and kind of reveal the map. But it also gives you this super functional way of getting into the sky, which we've talked about some, and we'll talk about a little bit more. But a bird's eye view of the ground, because we're not going to talk about it much, but this kind of cool story element regarding glyphs that you really have to have a high vantage point.
You can also see shrines.
Yeah, and you want to scout out where shrines are going to be and where unique just places on the map or stables are going to be, all sorts of things. It gives you a vantage. It also gives you the ability to shoot into the air to then start your travel to those places.
That's cool. It's a traversal thing.
Yeah, we kind of miss out on, Revalia's Gale or whatever it was called.
Yeah,
the last vertical one that gave you
this
a
is
vertical.
Revali's Gale?
Pretty much.
This kind of gives you a little taste of that in a limited fashion, but to start your exploration. And all of that's fun. They also wrap it in some really cool puzzles to give you extra content and story as you're unlocking these towers, so that they don't just all feel like the same, and that there's a little bit of something to achieve or reveal or unlock. And I love the implementation they did here.
Often when you're doing these, these are in a lot of games, right? You're in Assassin's Creed, you're climbing up to a vantage point, you're getting the eagle view, whatever, you're seeing all around. It's in so many games nowadays. It's kind of memey. I don't hate them as a general rule, but to tether it to the traversal thing, I think in this game, people are going to be riding on their horse a fraction of amount of time, because they've given you so many other ways to navigate through the air, on the ground, under the ground.
Horses are only good if you're hauling something.
But also,
why
ride a horse?
Whatever you're doing.
Why ride a horse when you can create a car?
Right.
Like, I mean, it's just
literally.
But I love the towers, and rather than fast traveling, we all use it. Rather than fast traveling to a stable or to a shrine, which I would have done in the past, I'm fast traveling primarily to these Skyview Towers, because even if there's a different shrine that's a little bit closer, being launched into the air and diving down exactly where I want to go might take a little bit quicker. It might be a little bit slower, but it'll be a lot more in style.
Oh, of course. It feels really good to do that.
It does, every time.
And you had mentioned the puzzles that they kind of built into these. That's new. I mean, some of the towers in Breath of the Wild had would have I don't know, vines around the bottom that you would maybe have to burn.
Try and make you earn getting up into the tower.
But it was just climbing the
it was sort
stupid
of
thing.
limited in how they could do that.
But in this one, some of the puzzles, like the door, a memorable one for me was the door was jammed. The guy was like, "I'm here to fix it. I can't get in." There's a cave nearby. You go in the cave and you ascend through the ceiling into there and see that there are sticks blocking the door from opening.
So good.
That the reward, they make you work for it too. It's not just like, hey, I found the new one, unveil the map. It's a tiny little shrine in itself trying to
I'll admit something.
Okay.
I climbed the first one I found.
I'm not surprised. Did you? Well, it was closed.
It was
right?
closed.
Yeah, there's nothing out there.
I think there's one where that's actually the gimmick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That the only way to get in is to climb it and to fall down the hole.
There's a rock on top.
But but that's so funny because that's what towers
what
are.
I did.
That's what you knew.
I got
Breath
to the
of the
top
Wild.
and couldn't do anything.
We go. And
That's
you're
really
just
funny.
chilling up there.
Yep. I doubt I was the only one, but I guess I'm the only one in this room.
We're just staring at you like, yeah.
Love Skyview Towers.
Yeah, they're great.
And finally, want to talk a little bit about why you might need Skyview Towers, or why you are and how you are using all of these abilities that we talked about in your gameplay of Tears of the Kingdom. And that's because not only are you on Hyrule, but you're also above Hyrule and you're under Hyrule. That is
ridiculous.
The Legend of Zelda. I actually, this was kind of a revelation to me. I put all the pieces together as I was preparing for this. This concept is not new to the series.
That's
Legend
correct.
of Zelda
True.
is known to have different realms, worlds.
Low rule,
In
yeah.
Link to the Past, you have Light World and the Dark
Dark
realm,
World, Dark
World.
World, yeah.
And in your handheld
A
one,
Link Between Worlds.
you're
you
in
have,
Koholint Island. I'm talking about Koholint
sure.
Island.
Yeah, that's Dreamland.
In
Link's Awakening.
Link's Awakening,
There's
There's
a
a lot of Zelda
Dreamland.
games.
and so they're not. It's not unfamiliar to the series,
Yeah.
but they did it very differently here than they've done before.
Sure.
And so they gave us all of Hyrule, and we talked about it. A lot of that's returning, just evolved.
Mm-hmm.
But then they gave us a smaller but very cool and unique sky world where there's islands, like sea islands,
Yeah.
but in the sky. They're relatively small, but there's a lot of them scattered around, and you have to find your way to get to those. A lot of them have pools of water. One of the coolest things is after the opening kind of sequence where it just says, where it takes you to a
Nothing.
ledge.
Says nothing.
And then, but when you walk up, your button changes to jump or leap, jump, and you're like, okay, and you leap. The title screen comes on, chills come on
It's
your skin.
beautifully done.
It's beautifully done. And then you
so
finally
good.
dive in the water. There's no fall damage if you land in the water. So
Right.
there's a key there. But you've got all those islands up there, and we can talk about those. And then you've got the depths. So now these chasms have opened up around Hyrule. You can dive down into them, and it is pitch black down there. The whole component down there is navigating around in the dark using these bright bloom seeds to find these
Light roots.
Light roots,
roots,
thank you.
yeah.
In order to activate, they're pretty much the towers of the underworld.
Sure, exactly.
And they will light up on your map and in your world, greater visibility.
Yeah. It took me a while before I visited the chasms. It doesn't make you. The game doesn't. I mean, eventually, I think it does.
Does it?
I think eventually. We haven't gotten to the mandatory part yet, but it's.
Oh, wow.
It's quite optional that I've noticed.
Well, we've gotten deep. No,
I know, but I kind of opted to not tackle that yet because, again, pretty overwhelming. But dude, the first time I went down there, it's so terrifying.
It's
horn
so
sounds. There's a
terrifying.
specific like horn that sounds, and it's really uneasy.
Yeah,
going down there.
it guides you down there early, but you don't have to do that, which is super nice.
Yeah.
He didn't do the camera stuff for a long time, which happens down there.
Yeah.
And I was wanting to fill out my, my inventory, my ability wheel.
Or the final ability. I can get that for a
Final
long time.
ability, and you have to complete stuff down there to
Yeah.
do the camera stuff. So
Yeah.
like all of that's connected and tethered. I'll admit this and acknowledge this. Depths is my least favorite, and I don't really have fun down there.
Wow.
That's surprising. I like
Really?
it. Yeah.
You like the depths?
I do. Yeah. They were a little daunting at first.
Okay.
Sure.
It's certainly new and different. But cool. I love the addition of just extra space. Like they just gave themselves so much real estate. Like why have another island or another map? Like you've got space, and they just very intelligently. Even the geography of the depths relate to the geography above
Right,
you in
that's it.
really intelligent ways.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I love that concept.
I'll say some of my most rewarding fights in the game have been
I
down
think
there.
those are some of the more challenging ones.
They're
down
challenging. You take like a special kind of gloom damage down there that makes it even
whole
harder.
different mechanics that you have to account for.
The enemies are different than the ones on the surface, and they drop more rewarding things. I kind of like them too. I didn't think I would.
there. Okay.
I was with you, and then I just started doing it more, and I was like,
Well, I don't, but I love the sky. The Sky Islands,
Yeah.
I could live up there. They're my favorite. They're so fun to get to. Like that's half of the
some
fun.
of them
yeah.
are
Some
hard
of them
to
are
get
hard to get
Yeah.
to.
There's
for
sort
sure.
of a built-in exploration puzzle.
Yeah.
Because,
And then once you get there, there's often a reward. So there's a unique kind of shrine that happens up there. A couple of unique kinds of shrines. The dive ones that bring the crystal to. There's a few different ones of those. There's often these not plinko machines. What are those machines that knock out
the Roblox
candy? That gives you those items.
gumball machines.
The gumball kind of machines. A lot of those are up
Dispensers.
there. There's other puzzles to solve, Koroks to find, old maps to discover.
Sage's wills.
Yeah, which I don't even know what those
I
are
need a
for
lot
yet.
more of them. I only have like one.
But Garlisle agrees with y'all. Garlisle says, I love the depths as a thing. The insistence on using resources to traverse new areas adds an innate tension to exploration, but it's balanced out by the fact that you can use knowledge of the surface to target your search of the depths, or vice versa sometimes.
Because the shrines are linked with the light roots.
It's a little bit more specific. Yeah.
I don't know if I even realized that.
I thought that's what you were alluding to in a very creative way earlier.
Well, then slight spoiler, but not a huge spoiler.
One of the
Super cool.
One of the cool things that you can do, I don't think either of you have discovered this, and you might not in an entire gameplay, is, and I don't remember exactly how to do it, but I think if you bring up your map, select or go in your ability wheel to the map. Doesn't need to belong there.
No one does that. No one does that.
You pull up your map and go to the underground or the depths or Hyrule or the sky, and then come back to the real world. Your mini map will stay on that map you chose, regardless of where you are right now. So you can traverse one while following the map above you.
That did not occur to me. That did not occur to me.
They allowed for that.
So it's not every shrine, but every light route has a shrine above it.
I think
makes
that's
sense.
what it is.
Okay.
Yes,
That makes sense.
Because there'd be a ton of light
Right,
routes.
there'd be so many. I was like, I don't feel like
So
there
bright.
are that many. Yeah.
so bright down there. By the way, I did see someone just recently was able to mod and tweak things where where you can turn on the lights in the depths. It doesn't look good, but just
like flick the lights are on?
well, yeah, the lights are on. It's a mod where you can just turn all the lights on and go around where it's bright down there. It's interesting to see what the world actually looks like.
Right.
It might be a little bit more scary but
you don't want to see
it was interesting to see.
Yeah.
It is just a whole it's just a whole nother depth to the game. I didn't like it, but it's true. A whole nother depth to the game. It provides an expansion to what you can do, but not artificially. Sometimes games do that.
True.
It's not just new areas for the sake of extending the game time. There's purpose to being in both of those.
Yes.
And it's really good.
If you want to be a part of our community, which you should, there are a lot of cool people in there. We're in Discord, and we want you to join. If you are liking these episodes, if you like our normal week-to-week episodes, you should be plugged in, and it's very easy to do so. All you have to do is have Discord, number one, and go to discord.gg/newgameplus.
Beyond hanging out as part of our community, we would also love you to support the show. We bring you lots of entertaining, interesting retro gaming content, and occasionally, like this week, some content based on more modern games. And so if you want more of the same, you can support us on patreon.com. Check out Dustin's legs for more details. Patreon.com/NGP podcast. And all the information you need is right there.
And you can follow us on social media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, and YouTube. All those links are in the show notes. Listen directly on any podcast provider of your choice. Make sure you're the first to get new. Make sure you're subscribed so that you're the first to get new NGP episodes. And while you're at it, please leave a kind rating and review. Our video episode was edited by our friend Dylan. Our audio episode was edited and produced by our friend Dan Willett. Join us next week as three guys continue spending 7 days playing one little game, and then we talk about it. Until then, I'm still Dustin.
I'm Kenny.
Link.
And this has been New Game Plus.